Hello everybody, welcome to my channel. Today I'm going to dive into making some alternate ideas using the latest October paper pumpkin, the Nests of Christmas. It coordinates with the winterly treetops, stamps and dies. I'm going to be using it on one of the projects, and also this fabulous Nests of Winter designer series paper, and this is where having used the die comes into play. But let's get started. This is the most amazing kit. I'm just going to pop the box off to one side actually and bring in the directions so you can see. These are the two card projects that you would be making if you made them as per the wonderful, as always, colour instructions. They're so clear and easy to follow. I mean, they're just great. But I've got this thing where, as lovely as they are, it always challenges me to go ahead and expand the kit a little bit. So without further ado, let me get started and show you how we're going to make the first card. So there are two cards. Well, these are the dies that come in the kit. There are also ribbons. There is the stamp set, which I've already mounted onto the acrylic block for the stamps I'm going to be using. And there's always a little stamping spot inside the kit. However, because I've got the big pads, I'm going to be using the shaded spruce and also the real red, because those are the colours that coordinate. So at various points you'll see where I have taken one of these. Sometimes I've chopped them up, but it'll become clear. So this is one of the card bases. So it would fold, this part would fold over. I don't actually want to crease it because sometimes when you cut them apart, it's easier to do it if it hasn't been folded. But you get the idea. This piece folds in and then this piece folds over the front. So it's a tri-fold card. However, mine are not tri-folds. They're sometimes two folds and sometimes they're one folds. So this was what I got left after I had cut the art and almost said the arched window, which is hilarious because those of you who watch my videos regularly, I often refer to Blue Peter, which was a childhood TV show I used to watch in England. And there was a one for very young children called Play School, and they used to go through a window, and one of those was the arched window. There was arch, round and square. But anyway, the arched window, that will come along a little bit later. But one of the, well, actually, you know what? Let me go ahead and get the other card out, because then it might make a bit more sense. This is the other card. So it's, again, it's the same concept. That folds in and then the rectangle folds over. So what I did was, on one of the cards, I went ahead and I punched out the rectangle because I need it for this card. So I've sort of mixed and mingled the two. There are some of the ingredients. This was, here you'll see there was the bird and the greenery with a little bit of extra red. Well, I wanted that red, so I just fussy cutted the pieces out to make this one card. And there is a little piece of white. So this green is 3 1/4 by 4 3/8. So I cut a piece of white 3 by 4 1/8 to be a little bit smaller. But what we're going to do is, we are not going to fold it the ordinary way. We are going to do, which is becoming quite a theme really, we're going to make it be a ZZ fold card. And actually I can see I've already gone ahead and done that. So these pieces, of course, these are 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. Each side of it, 5 1/2 by 4 1/4. So 2 1/8, I've already done it. Look at me being more organized than I thought I could be. So what we'll do is we'll fold it the opposite way to that which you would expect, and then back on itself at the 2 1/8, and that's what makes the ZZ fold. So I think in all of my paper pumpkins now, at some point in time on the alternates, there's been a ZZ fold. So this is going to be the piece that goes on the front, and this will be the inside. So let me just go ahead first and do the stamping. I'm actually going to use the same greeting throughout. It's just Merry Christmas. There's two stamps, but of course they're acrylic. When they're polymer and when you put them on the acrylic block, you can build them to be one continuous greeting. So I'm going to do it in real red. And I'm just going to bring it a little bit down towards me so there's not my head in the shot. So we'll get Merry Christmas. How lovely, deliciously lovely is that? So that's the first part. And then I am going to build the bird. So I'm going to put adhesive on the back of him. I'm just bringing my acrylic silicone mat just in case I overflow myself. So I'll put a little strip of adhesive down, and what we'll do is we will get the greenery, I think, as best we can. That looks quite nice. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to pop some dimensionals, which come in the kit, on the back of here. 1, 2, 3. And while I'm busy, I will just pop a couple of dimensionals on the greeting banner, and I'll leave those just for one quick second because it's probably easier to attach this while it's flat. So we'll line it up so there's an even border around, but we know the ZZ fold technique is if you flip it over and you measure it evenly around again, you know not to put adhesive beyond this fold, because if you do that you would stick your card down. So we'll eyeball it nice and even, and then we know to only put adhesive down these two areas. Oh, this is a sticky roller. And then when we flip it over and stick it down, the adhesive is only going to be on the hidden part. The middle is going to go on here, and the best way to do that is to actually line it up so there's an even border around the front layer, as you can see, and then put the adhesive onto it. And then because you know it's in an even space, actually fold the card onto it. So now when the card is closed, you can't see the greeting because it's just slightly smaller. And then we can go ahead and fling the dimensionals across the room, put the greeting on, and stick the 3 little pieces of the bird on a branch collection on. And there you have it, the first card made with one of the adapted card pieces. So I'll pop that off to one side and bring in the next one. Well, the next one uses the piece that was the arch. This was just my little sampler. So we've got a piece of cardstock, and it's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. That's an easy one because we know that goes inside a standard envelope. I've got the middle piece to go inside, which is a 1/6 of a piece of, let me just change that roller because that one is being uncooperative. And that can just go in the middle. It's a 1/6 rather than a 1/4, so you get 6. And when you're making lots and lots of Christmas cards like I do, it's nice to have, you know, just a little bit of scrimp. So the arch was originally on the card where it folded on the front. It was 4 1/4 by 5.5, and I trimmed it down to be 4 by 5 1/4. So it's the layered size. But then I thought what I would do was I would cut the white piece to go underneath it just a little bit smaller, so there was a little chance we didn't overhang it. So that is 3 1/8 by 5 1/8. Of course, all the directions and dimensions will be on my blog. I just wrote that down to remind myself. So what we need to do is we need to stamp the Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, in the middle, and then we are going to do some leaf stamping around. So bring in a piece of scratch paper to stamp on. Get out the real red again. This is Blueberry Bushel, by the way. I don't think I mentioned the colour. So we'll put Merry Christmas in the middle of that piece. And then we have the leaf stamp, which came out of the stamps provided in the kit. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in the shaded spruce and just go around, just so there's a little bit of spruciness. And I just brought the scratch paper in so it didn't make my work surface too previous projecty. So we'll pop that off to one side. And now you can see this sits nicely with just a little bit of greenery peeking through. I mean, here, you know what, perhaps we could do a couple more bigger at the bottom, because it will be disguised by the arch itself. So we'll put a couple of taller ones there. You can make them be as tall as you like as you go round, but that's pretty much the idea of, oops, how that works. And then what we need to do is stick this to the back of here and then attach it to the front. So what I'm going to do is I am going to put adhesive around the arch, just around close to the edges. Doesn't want to go too far over, which again is why I'm using my silicone mat. And then we can line this up and then attach the whole thing with dimensionals to the front of the card. Just need a few of those. Oh, I need to put those dimensionals back. Otherwise, when I'm looking for them later, I go, oh, I've got dimensionals here somewhere. Don't know where they could be. So we'll quickly peel the backings off. And that will just get layered onto the front. Now the trick with dimensionals is if you put too many together, they'll become double thickness and they won't fit through the post office allowance of thickness. However, if you put them where they aren't so noticeable, if you find where there isn't one and you put your dimensional there, they'll squash flat into each other as you are putting them into the envelope, and you'll be able to get a lot more usage out of it. So I've just put a little bit of adhesive on these berries, just so it balances out the bird a little bit, I thought. And then because there aren't any dimensionals here, I can put a couple on the back. So we can put one on the leaves and one on the bird, and that should really be enough to elevate him up and give him a little bit of dimension. So it's nice because the whole card front is dimensionalized. And then this little guy has his dimensions, but they don't interfere with the ones holding the card front on. And that is the second card. So we're cracking along. The third card made from that kit is a gatefold card. Oh, I've already brought dimensionals in. So what I did was I cut out, I fussy cutted, well actually cut around this bird on this paper, because there is actually a die that goes with that. But because I'm going to be able to see the back of him, what I did was I glued it onto a piece of basic white paper before I cut it out with the die cuts. You can't fussy cut it, of course, if you don't have the dies. I would just say, again, glue it onto a piece of basic white cardstock and then fussy cut it out, because it will be better if the back is plain. And then what we're going to do is we're going to gatefold this card. So again, it's 8.5 by 5.5. We're not scoring it in the middle, of course, because it's going to be a gatefold. So we're going to score it at 2 1/8. Just line it up on the paper trimmer. Oops. and score it at 2 1/8. But then the advice for gate folding is to not score it on both sides, because sometimes it depends where you get it in the trough of the paper cutter. It's better to just butt the side up against the one that has been scored, and then you know they're going to meet super nice and even in the middle. So again, we've just got the inside piece, so I'll quickly stick that in because it's a dark cardstock and you would never be able to see the greeting unless you wrote it in a white gel pen or something. So there's your gate. And then what we're going to do, I've lost my bird. I do this all the time to myself. I honestly don't know. He's over here. So what we're going to do is we are going to cut this arch in half. It's going to be part of the gate fold. So we'll measure it, and it seems that it is it's 3.5. Let's call it 3.5. And half of 3.5 is too much for my brain to be able to cope with. It's actually 1 5/8. So if we line it up at 1.5 and then just 1/8 over, we can cut that in half. So this, don't forget, was the arch that came out of the other piece of the other card. Whoops, I'm losing my pieces. So then what we need to do, oh look, you see that's not even buttered properly. Let me just see if I can rescore that. So then what we'll do is we're going to stick these two pieces onto each side, just like this. So the best way to do that is to open one side so you've got a lighter surface to see where you are sticking it. So we'll run some adhesive down the two sides, and we can see that's where it's going to go. This one will be easier, of course, because we're matching it up to its partner on the other side. So run some adhesive, close the card, match it up, and now we've got a gatefold that has that lovely arch in the middle. And then in order for it to stay together, what we're going to do is we're going to pop this bird on with dimensionals. So bring those back in. So pop him on close to the edge. You can even go over the edge if you wanted to. And then if you stick this piece down, whoops, when you join them together, actually, you know what? No, not going to do that. Change of mind, Alyson. Let's just turn that little bird around. Let's just take off the dimensionals altogether. Sorry about that, guys. But I'm not going to wrestle with it. It's just quicker to stick 2 more on. 2 more dimensionals, like that part never happened. That's one of the things when you're sort of inventing things as you go along. So we'll put those over on their own side, but if we put the greenery so it overlaps, this little guy will hold that down. So we want to put just a nice strip of glue on that side. So now the bird's, he's tucked under. He will hold it together. Hold yourself together. And then again, we will bring in the real red. Stamp another Merry Christmas. But then you have to remember you only want glue on one side. So again, ZZ fold technique. We will stick it to one side, and as long as you don't exceed where the seam is, when you stick this down, it's only going to be on one side. So there we have a nice gatefold card that will open and it will close because the greenery tucks under the little bird. So they were the 3 cards that we made out of that one card base. Now we will move on to the next base, which is the one that had the opening. Let me see if I can find that actual card. It's this one. So this is the card. So we took the opening out to make the ZZ fold, and this was the piece that was left. There is the green part, which actually I didn't get to do anything with yet. And then there's this lovely shimmery one, which will be the next card coming along. So stay tuned. So what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of the blueberry bushel, and it's 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4, and fold it down. Ooh, background paper is coming adrift. And then, as always, there is the little piece, the little 1/6 of basic white, which is going to go on the inside, so that you actually have a light enough surface to write on. And then what we're going to do is we're going to stick this down, but not straight away, because we need to do a little bit of stamping. In the instructions for the card, it actually shows, I don't know if you can see that there are little bits of greenery on both of the corners, and that is what we are going to do here. So let me bring in my scrap paper again and bring in the little leaf. And then what we'll do is we'll just stamp some greenery in each corner, just to give it a little hint. And then this is the same size, so there's no layering down, so we just need to be careful that we get it in place. Now you can do it with liquid glue, because liquid glue sometimes can be a little bit more forgiving, and you've got like a little chance to slither it around. But I'm feeling confident, she said. Now that I've said that, of course it's going to fail miserably, but we will just put it to the corners and along the top. And keep our fingers crossed. There we go. Good job. Oh, I'm quite impressed with myself, she said. Now they give you little packs of grosgrain ribbon, red grosgrain, and the whole piece is supposed to run under each greeting. But I thought, well, if it's going to run under, we don't need to use it all up. So you know me and my scrimping ways, I decided I would cut it down a little bit. So I cut it in half, chevron the edge, and then cut it. Let me just make sure this is not damp from being washed. So again, another Merry Christmas. Of course, you can do this in the shaded spruce. I just thought, as I was doing them all the same, I would try and make them be pretty similar. So what I need to do now is put a little piece of adhesive on each side. Actually, I think I'll do it that way. And that way. And now we've got the ribbon underneath, but because it's going to get stuck down, nobody is any the wiser that there isn't any here. And I will again bring in the dimensionals. So I'll put one at the seam of each ribbon, so it helps hold it in place, and one in the middle. So it's best for this card to put the greeting on first, because then you can arrange and see where the greenery and the bird can go best. So I think in the main event, they put the bird and the greenery on dimensionals, but I'm just going to put dimensionals on the back of my greenery and then stick the bird on. So fling those across the room, doing a lot of flinging. And then we've just got to make sure that of course it doesn't overhang the edges of the card, because see where this bird would go best. Yes, I want to try and leave as many berries out as possible. And then I'm just going to one nice big chunk of red. And there you have it, another card. Oh, look, I have overhung myself. Good grief. Listen to yourself, Alyson. We'll just have to push that one into the envelope. That one will be a tight fit with the basic white on the inside. And now we're up to the final card. So this involves some of the envelope. The envelopes are great. Quite often they've got sort of a designer series look to the inside of them, which these ones didn't. But what I did was I went ahead and split the envelope just by cutting a slither down. If you're not sure how that does, if you look to one of my past paper pumpkin videos, it will show, or probably when I come to do round 2 of, you know, alternatives, I will be cutting more envelopes apart. So I cut it apart, and then what I did was I cut this design out of the envelope. This bird came out, this is the bird as is out of the set. So what I've done is I took the blue shiny piece, like I said, and I've cut it down. So the shaded spruce is 8.5 by 5.5, scored at 4 1/4. So we are all right with that idea. This, oops, you see how sometimes you get just a little difference? If that happens because of the way it falls in the trough, it's always advisable to turn it over and have the bigger piece, even if it's only by a 1/32, have that be the front. So the piece of the card, I cut it down, and it is 4 1/8 by 5 3/8 because it's going to be layered on. And then what I did was I cut out of Stylish Shapes this banner. I just made it a little bit shorter because there are only so many of those lovely green foiled edged ones in the kit. So what I'm going to do is, last go round, we'll stamp Merry Christmas in the red. Merry Christmas. And that can go on the front. I'm actually just going to stick this on. It doesn't, I'm going to put dimensionals on all the other pieces so it doesn't want to be too fat. So we'll layer it on, remembering that it was only cut down by 1/8. So the piece that surrounds it, really I only did it by 1/8 because I didn't want to lose any of this lovely shimmery shiny piece. There is the 1/6 of basic white, as usual, can go in. And then when you're cutting layers down, if you want to, you can always add these little shiny pieces to the inside just to give it a little bit of extra shimmer. I'm not going to do that this time. But now this, I fussy cut it around, and then I tried to do it as best I could. Let me bring in the silicone mat so it probably shows up a little bit better. But there was the straight edge of the envelope, but I felt if I cut him down and around, I wiggled that piece. But to be honest, I don't think you can tell that that wasn't one continuous thing. So I'm just going to put a little piece of glue on the side of this bird guy so I can attach him to the greenery, and then I can stick it on with dimensionals, and the dimensionals will hold the seam in place. And then we'll pop a couple onto the back of the greetings. put this up in the top corner, and the dimensionals will hold these two pieces together, and we'll pop this guy, whoops, down in this corner. So there you have it. That is the 5th and final card. I did try to make 6, but my brain just ran out of ideas. So these are the cards that we made from the first round, although this green piece did come out of here. So these are the cards, my lovelies. Let me see if I can get everything in the shot. As always, the directions and dimensions will be on my blog. There is lots more to come. If you like what you've seen, please consider subscribing. Give me a thumbs up. I do appreciate that. If you've got any questions or comments, pop those in the description box below. And last but not least, enjoy. Look out for round 2. And thanks so much for watching.